All right, let's dive into today's political landscape.
Yeah.
We've got a lot to cover from electoral votes, news analysis, and
Yeah.
it's 2024-1209,
hmm
and we're going to unpack some key takeaways and really try to find some of those hidden gems within their analysis.
Absolutely. And what always strikes me about electoral vote is how they take these seemingly isolated events and connect them to like a bigger picture, you know?
Yeah,
They show us how the pieces fit together.
right. It's kind of like a backstage pass to how American politics really works.
Exactly.
So let's jump right in with the biggest story today. Donald Trump's first post-election interview, electoral votes really highlighting how it seems the realities of governing are sinking in. You know, he's already kind of walking back some campaign promises.
Yeah, it seems like
But-
it. Take birthright citizenship, for example.
Right.
During the campaign, he was adamant about ending it completely.
Mhm.
But now he's just talking about, seeking to end it.
Yeah.
That's a pretty noticeable shift in tone, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
And it probably has a lot to do with the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
It guarantees citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil. Overturning that would be
A huge challenge.
monumental.
It's like a little reminder that campaign talk and actual governing are two different things,
Mhm.
especially when you're dealing with complicated legal matters. And his comments on Ukraine aid, well, those raised some eyebrows, too.
Oh, absolutely. He's walking a tightrope there.
Yeah.
He needs to keep his base happy, and they're generally against foreign intervention.
Right.
But then cutting off Ukraine entirely would alienate a lot of Republicans who see Russia as a real threat.
Yeah.
So he's trying to find that middle ground, which is never easy.
And then there's the talk about locking up his enemies, which sounds more like a reality TV show line than a serious policy.
Yeah, I mean, we have to remember that a president can't just imprison people he doesn't like.
Right.
There's legal processes, safeguards in place to prevent that kind of abuse of
It's
power.
not a dictatorship. Electoral vote also points out that Trump's healthcare plans, or maybe lack thereof, are causing some concern.
Yeah.
Basically passing the buck to Congress, which we know has a history of gridlock when it comes to healthcare.
Right. So many questions unanswered. What happens to the millions relying on the Affordable Care Act? What about those struggling to afford health care in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
It's a critical issue that needs more attention.
Let's shift gears now to the Middle East, Syria. Always complex, electoral vote calls it a rapidly changing landscape full of uncertainty, especially with Putin having fled to Moscow. And it seems like Trump's taking a wait-and-see approach.
Interesting, considering his past stance on foreign policy. He's criticized interventionism, but he's also shown he's willing to use force when he sees it as necessary.
So it's tough to predict how he'll react to the situation in Syria.
Definitely. And this uncertainty has a ripple effect throughout the whole region.
Right.
Iran and Hezbollah are major players there, and whatever Trump does will definitely influence their actions.
It really shows how foreign policy is rarely straightforward.
Right. Every action or even inaction has consequences, and those are often hard to predict.
Yeah. The butterfly effect.
Now, for a story about strategic moves happening on Capitol Hill, Electoral Vote is discussing AOC's bid for ranking member on the House Oversight Committee.
Interesting.
You might think, well, isn't that kind of a powerless role? But it could actually be brilliant.
Oh, absolutely.
Huh.
It's all about positioning for the future. Even though Democrats are in the minority right now, if they take back the House in 2026, guess what? The ranking member becomes the chair.
And that gives AOC
Significant power to investigate the Trump administration, subpoena documents, hold public hearings.
not to mention her skill at grabbing media attention.
She's a master of social media, and this position would give her a bigger platform.
A bigger megaphone
Exactly. And it shows that sometimes the smartest moves are the ones that happen quietly.
right under the radar.
And AOC has proven she knows how to play the game. Definitely. Now, for something that's raising eyebrows across the political spectrum, Tulsi Gabbard's nomination for Director of National Intelligence, this is causing a stir.
Yeah, and for good reason. Almost 100 former national security officials have signed a letter expressing serious concerns about her qualifications and past statements.
Wow.
They're pointing to her lack of experience in intelligence and, her history of defending leaders like Assad and Putin. The Electoral Vote even compares it to past nominees who were derailed by far less controversial issues.
Yeah, it sounds like Gabbard's nomination could face a real uphill battle in the Senate.
It raises questions about how we choose people for these incredibly important positions.
Yeah.
The Director of National Intelligence oversees the entire U.S. intelligence community. You need deep expertise, sound judgment, and a commitment to national security.
It really highlights the significance of these presidential appointments, especially when it comes to national security.
Absolutely. And
Now,
it'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds.
now, for a story that's a bit of a dark turn, but it reveals a lot about public sentiment, Electoral Vote covers the murder of a health insurance CEO, and the reaction to it has been shocking.
Yeah, the lack of sympathy, even the celebration surrounding his death. It shows just how deep the anger and frustration run towards the health insurance industry.
It's rare to see such a strong response to the death of a high-profile figure.
Yeah.
Even internet sleuths, who usually love to solve crimes, are refusing to help the police.
It speaks volumes about the disillusionment with the healthcare system in America. People are struggling to afford basic care, and they see insurance companies as part of the problem.
Not the solution.
Right. And this incident just throws fuel on the fire.
It's a powerful reminder that the healthcare debate is far from over, and that public anger could have major political consequences. Speaking of questionable political choices, we have to talk about Trump's latest nominee to lead the IRS.
Billy Long, the auctioneer.
With no experience in tax law or government.
It's a baffling choice.
Right. Electoral Vote suggests this could be a move by Trump to weaponize the IRS against his opponents. The current commissioner has been cracking down on tax evasion by the wealthy.
Which hasn't made him popular in certain circles.
And remember, the IRS commissioner has a fixed term to prevent this kind of political interference.
Right.
Trump wanting to fire him early sets a dangerous precedent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This could have serious consequences for tax enforcement, customer service, public trust in the IRS. It raises bigger questions about American leadership on the world stage, too.
And that's exactly what Electoral Vote tackles in an article titled, "Is the American Century Over?" They're arguing that Trump's policies are weakening the foundation of America's global leadership.
Interesting.
They highlight four main principles of the American century: a rules-based economy, global peace commitment, a liberal immigration system, and a culture that values expertise.
That makes sense.
And they argue that Trump's actions, from tariffs to withdrawing from NATO, are dismantling those very principles.
It's a thought-provoking analysis. It connects voter dissatisfaction with the system to the GOP's exploitation of prejudice. They're painting a pretty bleak picture of America's standing in the world today.
Right, saying that Trump's policies are eroding our moral authority and global influence.
A sobering assessment. It makes you think about America's role in the 21st century.
And speaking of challenges to the established order, let's move to the digital world. The TikTok saga continues.
Oh boy.
The appeals court has upheld the ban, citing national security concerns about data privacy and Chinese government influence. So the future of TikTok in the U.S. is up in the air.
Uncertain times for TikTokers.
It is interesting how Trump's stance on TikTok has changed. He wanted a ban during his first term, but then he was all about it during the campaign.
Hard to keep up.
Right. This inconsistency makes you question his real motives.
Yeah, what's the real goal here?
And this ban could have a ripple effect on the tech industry as a whole.
How so?
Well, Apple and Google, they host TikTok in their app stores. They'll have to figure out how to comply with the court's ruling. This could set a precedent for how other apps with ties to foreign governments are treated.
A landmark case, potentially.
Now let's switch gears to the 2026 House races. Electoral Vote reports that both the DCCC and the NRCC will be led by experienced chairs.
So both parties are gearing up for a tough fight.
It seems so. They're expecting a very competitive race in 2026. Control of the House is potentially at stake.
High stakes indeed.
And Electoral Vote also points out the stability of the House in recent elections. Only a small number of seats have changed hands. They say this is partly due to gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering. The manipulation of district boundaries to favor one party.
Exactly. It can create safe seats for incumbents and limit competitive races, which reduces voter turnout and makes it harder for challengers to win.
It's a way for politicians to choose their voters instead of the other way around.
And they even provide a list of districts that flipped in 2024. It's a glimpse into potential battlegrounds for the next election cycle.
Like a sneak peek into the future.
And speaking of battlegrounds, let's head to Virginia. The gubernatorial election is heating up, and this race has some historical weight to it. We could see either the first female governor or the first black female governor in U.S. history.
Wow, that's significant.
It is. The race is between Abigail Spanberger, a Democratic congresswoman, and Winsome Earl Sears, the current lieutenant governor. Both are very qualified with impressive records.
It'll be a close one.
Electoral Vote dives into the factors that could favor Spanberger.
Like what?
Her fundraising is strong, and Trump's unpopularity in the state could hurt Earl Sears. They also point out that the Virginia governor's race has historically been a good indicator of the next year's midterm results.
So this race could be a preview of what's to come in 2026.
Exactly. Now, up north to New Jersey, the governor's race there is getting crowded and contentious, especially on the Democratic side.
A lot of contenders.
Three prominent ones stand out. Stephen Fulop, the mayor of Jersey City, Mikey Sherrill, a congresswoman, and Josh Gottheimer, another congressman. Each has their own qualifications and political leanings.
So it's going to be a dynamic and unpredictable race.
Definitely. Electoral vote breaks down their backgrounds and strengths. Fulop is seen as a rising star with a progressive agenda. Cheryl brings her military experience and focus on national security. And Gottheimer is known for his fundraising and more moderate stance.
So a diverse field.
It is, the Republican side is less clear. No obvious frontrunner yet. But the question of Trump's influence looms large.
Will the Republican nominee embrace Trumpism or try to distance themselves?
Right. That could make all the difference in the general election. Electoral vote gives the edge to the Democrats in New Jersey.
It is a traditionally blue state.
But they say it's early and anything could happen.
The political landscape is always changing.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up, electoral vote has a little holiday treat for us.
Oh, what is it?
It's the 5th day of their It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas series, and today they're suggesting some tongue-in-cheek gifts for Vice President-elect J.D. Vance. One that caught my eye was a scrapbook filled with articles and social media posts from back in 2017 when Vance's book Hillbilly Elegy was getting praised by universities all over the country.
Interesting. So it's kind of a reminder of Vance's journey and how perceptions can change.
Right. He's gone from acclaimed author to a key figure in the Trump administration.
It shows how quickly political fortunes can shift.
And how past words can come back to haunt you.
Politics is a tricky business.
It is. But it's also a reminder that we're all on a journey. Our perspectives can change over time.
Yeah, Vance's story shows the complexities of American life and the challenges of navigating our political landscape.
It makes you think about the choices we make, the values we hold, and how our actions impact others.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that even amidst the political battles, there's always room for reflection, growth, and a little bit of humor.
A little levity.
Exactly. It's amazing how electoral vote ties all these seemingly separate stories together.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're highlighting these underlying tensions and trends that are shaping the political scene right now.
Yeah, it's like they're giving us a decoder ring for the political world. And one theme that keeps popping up is accountability.
Oh, definitely. From Trump possibly backpedaling on those campaign promises to the outrage over the health insurance industry, people are demanding that those in power are held responsible.
Right. And it's not just domestic issues. The worries about Tulsi Gabbard's qualifications for D&I, that raises questions about how we vet these high-level appointments and if personal beliefs should trump experience when it comes to national security.
Yeah, those positions come with immense power.
Yeah.
Their decisions have huge consequences for everyone. So it makes you think about what criteria we should use when evaluating candidates for office.
Especially those making life or death decisions.
Exactly. It shouldn't just be about political party. It's about competence, integrity, and understanding the issues.
Electoral vote also touches on accountability when they talk about the stability of the House and the effects of gerrymandering. They point out that when you don't have competitive races, it makes it harder to hold those incumbents accountable.
It's like politicians get to choose their voters instead of the other way around.
Right, and that can create a real disconnect between the representatives and the people they're supposed to represent.
Not to mention, it can stifle debate and new ideas. When politicians feel secure in their seats, you're less likely to listen to their constituents or compromise.
It concentrates power in the hands of a few, and the voices of everyday citizens get lost.
Exactly. It creates an imbalance.
But that list of districts that flipped in 2024 that electoral vote provides, it offers a glimmer of hope, you know?
How so?
Well, those are the places where voters overcame gerrymandering and elected people who actually reflect their values.
So they could be a sign of things to come. Maybe a growing demand for more competitive races and a government that actually listens.
And speaking of competitive races, let's talk about those gubernatorial elections in Virginia and New Jersey. Electoral vote highlights how historic the Virginia race is. We could see the first female governor or the first black female governor in U.S. history.
That's a big deal. It shows progress, but it also highlights how much further we have to go.
Abigail Spanberger and Winsome Earl Sears. They're both highly qualified with great track records.
So what will be the deciding factors?
Well, their campaigns will probably focus on those big issues: education, healthcare, the economy.
You know, the bread and butter issues.
And this race, could have national implications. Virginia often reflects national trends, so a Democratic win could signal a shift away from Trumpism.
Interesting. A desire for more moderate policies.
But a Republican win could mean continued support for conservative ideas and maybe even a resurgence of Trump's influence.
So all eyes will be on Virginia.
Absolutely. Now, in
Yeah.
New Jersey, that crowded Democratic primary shows how strong the party is there, but it also makes the race less predictable.
Solving possibilities.
Right. They've got Stephen Fulop, Mikey Sherrill, Josh Gottheimer. They each bring something different to the table.
So it'll be interesting to see how they try to stand out and win over voters.
The Republican side is less clear, but that question of Trump's influence will definitely be a factor. Will they embrace him or try to distance themselves?
That could determine the whole election. New Jersey leans blue, but a strong Republican candidate who appeals to moderates could really shake things up.
Electoral Vote's analysis of these races gives us a good look at what's to come in the 2026 midterms. It reminds us that these state-level races can have a big impact nationally. And each election gives us a chance to see how the voters are feeling and where the country's headed.
It's a constant evolution. Politics is always adapting.
Right, and Electoral Vote helps us understand all the complexities. They give us the tools to navigate the political landscape and have those informed conversations.
And let's not forget those funny Christmas gift suggestions for J.D. Vance. They were a lighthearted way to think about his political journey.
That scrapbook idea was brilliant, highlighting that shift from outsider to insider.
It shows that politics is full of surprises, and even those with strong beliefs can change over time.
Vance's story reminds us to be open to different viewpoints and not judge people based on their past.
And it shows how humor can help us understand complicated issues and have those tough conversations.
It's what makes Electoral Vote so engaging. They inform and entertain while making us think critically about the world.
It's not just about the news. It's about going deeper and connecting the dots to understand the big picture.
So as we keep going with this deep dive, let's keep in mind those themes of accountability, representation, and the ever-changing nature of politics.
Those are the cornerstones of American democracy, and they'll continue to shape the national dialogue.
And by staying informed, participating, and holding our leaders accountable, we can ensure our democracy stays strong and works for the people. I love how Electoral Vote finds those little bits of humor and satire, even when they're analyzing serious stuff. It's refreshing.
It makes it more fun to read, for sure. And sometimes a good joke can be more powerful than a long article when it comes to pointing out how crazy politics can be.
Those gift suggestions for J.D. Vance were spot-on funny, but they also made you think about the expectations and challenges he'll face as VP, especially since he used to be so critical of the establishment.
It goes to show you that politics is always changing, and even people with strong convictions can evolve. Vance's journey from critic to insider is going to be interesting to follow.
Speaking of journeys, I think a big takeaway from today is that American politics is at a crossroads. We've got some serious questions to answer about the future of our country.
Yeah, the decisions made in the next few years will have a huge impact on everything, from our global standing to how we handle healthcare and economic inequality.
The stakes are high, and it's up to us as citizens to stay informed, participate, and hold our leaders accountable.
That's why resources like Electoral Vote are so important. They help us make sense of this complicated political world and have those important conversations.
I feel like we've been given this toolkit for understanding what's happening around us.
Yeah.
The more we know, the better decisions we can make, and the more we can contribute to positive change.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, and by staying informed and engaged, we can make a real difference.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm feeling a sense of urgency but also hope. The challenges are there, but so are the opportunities for progress.
I think by working together, having open conversations, and sticking to our values, we can build a better future for ourselves and for generations to come.
Well said. And to everyone listening, stay curious, stay involved, and never underestimate the power of your voice. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep. You never know what you might discover.